line here Will and Mick from World of Martial Arts magazine.
Hello,
hey,
Kit.
how you doing, mate?
Hi, Kit. How you doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad at all.
Very good. Hope it's not too much of an early morning start for you.
It was a bit, but no, I was out late last night. I had a poker tournament, so I wanted a little bit more sleep. Hold on a second.
How did you do in the poker tournament? Did you come out ahead or?
I won money. It was a cash tournament. I won money, but I should have won a lot more. I lost a big hand. I think I was up. Oh, I'm going to turn this alarm off.
So you're not over in LA getting ready for another film? Was the first question.
There's not a film here at the moment. There's a short film I've got to do. I've got 2 tournaments here. One in Las Vegas next month, and then one in Houston the weekend after. And there's another one in September. But I'm doing a lot of acting classes and improv classes here at the moment.
Right. Where were you playing poker?
Well, it was at the Hollywood Bowl Casino, I think it's called. It's like a small place in Inglewood near the airport. Yeah. And I've never been there before, but my buddy plays a lot. He suggested it because we usually play about 3 games a week, and there's a group of us. But I want to play more, so I try and find somewhere else I can play.
And before we get started, you got me interested. I was just in Vegas 2 weeks ago, but I went with the wife. So it was like loads of gamblers, and I'm doing Cirque du Soleil and Donnie and Marie. So it was a different sort of Vegas for me to most people. But there's some serious, like it truly is, built on sand, $5 lobster and broken dreams in Vegas, man. There's some bad looking guys there, right? Did you see anybody crying last night?
Oh man, there's so many sad and upset people. Like I was sitting right next to a guy that was mad the whole time, and he wouldn't hit his card, so he'd throw his chips in and then get in an argument with the dealer. And there was someone else on the other side that was getting frustrated, and I think he was mad at me because I had hit 2 flushes, and I'm just laughing the whole time. Like, these guys are so stupid, man. Like, why would you create a lifestyle around something that brings you so much frustration? Like, I understand there's going to be certain times where you get like bad beat, where you're like your odds are 97% favourite to win, then you lose, and then you think, it's this and that. But I mean, it's what you're there for. You've got to accept that. So I don't know. There's a lot of people that have very unhealthy lifestyles there.
Yeah, definitely. I should actually save this for the interview, but I've got to ask you now. With your off-kilter approach to acting, with the improv, and also your off-kilter approach, we'll talk later about jiu-jitsu. How do you go into poker where there is chance and there is a lot of luck, but there is a system to a degree that you've got to follow? There's rules that you've got to work. How do you work within that framework?
Well, it's pretty difficult because I am quite new to it. I think I started 6 months ago, and I didn't like it the first game, and then I really enjoyed it. And I think the way I look at it is so much of it is manipulation, very similar to jiu-jitsu and martial arts. It's so much like of manipulation and so much of like trying to trick people that I really enjoy, like the psychological part of things, and watching people and trying to figure out when people are lying and when people are strong. And I think the last month, really, I've started to really get better at putting people on certain like card ranges and certain cards, and I've been able to guess a lot of like the hands they have. So I kind of took it very, very much like the way I started jiu-jitsu, where I just wanted to play. I didn't find much joy in sitting there and learning the mathematics behind it. One, because I couldn't understand it anyway. So I just like to play, and kind of learn through trial and error. And now when I study it a little bit more, I start understanding a lot more of the conceptual ideas behind poker and the mathematics behind, pot bets and, how many outs you have. Yeah. But the thing I really enjoy is the psychological part of sitting there and trying to convey a message, that is false. And trying to read people, and that's the part. If I can read what someone has And regardless if they win or not, like I really enjoy that part. And I've been able to do that a couple of times lately where I've been able to put someone on like, I think they're a jackass. And then afterwards they're like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah. Well, my two eldest sons, right, are both history teachers. And my eldest in particular, he's followed me into martial arts now, but he loves jiu-jitsu, but he's a very cerebral chap. He's a very intelligent individual. And he's very intelligent when it comes to poker, where I'm like, wow, as soon as I see something. But he's really, really good at, just reading people at like Jedi mind trick level shit. When you're looking at it and you're going, and he'll just say, the way he raised his eyebrow, I knew I had him. And you're like, I didn't see him raise his eyebrow a little. He just didn't have his eye on the ball for that moment. It's interesting you took up poker. Very interesting. It's cool. Yeah. Should we do an intro? What want to do? Will?
Well, that's what I was going to lead into. That is are your acting lessons facilitating your ability to dupe the other players, or is that just general life? Are all these things conspiring to be the same thing?
Yeah, I definitely think the acting is a huge part in the. And not even so much like the acting's helped my poker, more the poker's helped my acting in a sense that everything that you do on the poker table conveys a certain message. And like your son said, every eyebrow movement, everything is telling something. So what I found with poker is I've become highly aware of not only what I'm doing, but what my opponents are doing. And then you start seeing things. It's similar to in acting, like there's a lot of things that when you first start acting, you do, which is all really bad stuff. It's just like habits. You're acting instead of being natural. And there's a lot of things in life that we do that we don't really realize. And it sometimes takes years to sort of figure out certain mannerisms. It could be as much as someone opening their eyes a little bit wider or something like that. And like certain things convey certain messages. So I really enjoy that because I can start now to see that a lot more. And it really helps with the acting when I have a certain scene or I have a certain nervousness. You see it all the time in poker. Like there's people that are nervous, there's people that are excited. There's a lot of emotional range when playing poker and stressed. So there's a lot you can kind of pull from poker into acting, I think, anyway.
Yeah. Who would be your favourite actor then? That you aspire that you would like to maybe aspire to be in that same vein? I mean.
Well, there's no one that I would say like that's who I want to be exactly, but I think my favourite actors, there's a couple of them, would be a combination of Daniel Day-Lewis, Philip Seymour Hoffman,
cool,
McConaughey.
McConaughey.
Yeah, I think he's become a very. I mean, I no doubt he's become an amazing actor lately. I think it's the character actors that I really enjoy the most. I mean, there's some great actors that kind of play themselves all the time, but I think there's a lot more skill in becoming somebody else, and especially on a believable level. Yeah,
well, when you said McConaughey, a lot of people don't like they think about the Texas Buyers Club and stuff, but when he was in Dazed and Confused, did you ever see that? That was one of Linklater's first movies, and he plays. You'd love him in it.
No, I haven't.
He plays a guy who's like 21, 22, hanging around with college kids. So he's still just cool enough to hang around, but in a year's time he's going to be an absolute like sex pest if he stays with these kids any longer, But the way he plays the part is unbelievable. And as he's just the other one as well is I like his personal history. Stripping his clothes off and playing the bongos at parties and stuff. If you're gonna be famous, that's the sort of thing you should be doing. I don't Chris Martin from Coldplay. You know what I mean? I want to be. Well, obviously, I don't want to be Philip Seymour Hoffman. You know what I mean? That's taking it to the extreme. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Daniel Day-Lewis again, man, another class act all the way through. So what are you doing in LA at the moment? Because we'll talk about why we're supposed to be talking to you. But what are you doing in LA?
Should we dive? So I was going to say, should we dive in with that? Because how did you get from being the BJJ superstar that you are to being in movies?
So I always loved movies. I mean, everyone loves movies. When I was a kid, my mum and dad actually my mum, they had a video camera, her and her brothers, and she had 5 brothers and 4 sisters. And they used to always film like little comedy skits, like they do little sketches where they were news anchors and they would do funny stuff and characters and put pillows under their stomach and stuff. And we loved that growing up as kids. And so we got a camera when we were little, me and my 2 little brothers, and we started recording wrestling at the back. We loved WWF back then and WCW. We started recording wrestling, and then we started also doing like Star Wars stuff and filming fight scenes and started trying to do funny comedy scenes all the way through growing up. And I absolutely loved it, but I never thought, we grew up in the country. I went to a primary school with maybe 52 kids in the whole school. So we never really thought about, acting as a career or even wrestling as a career. And then later on, my brother, when he was maybe 19, he went to a film school for directing, and he did that and he started pursuing directing. And then he wanted to film a short film, and he asked me, he was like, would you be interested in doing that? I was like, yeah, sounds fun. So I played like the bad guy in the short film, and I really loved it. I had so much fun doing it. And then we started filming sort of smaller comedy sketches on YouTube and Facebook, and they started going pretty well. Like, people liked them, and I enjoyed doing them. And then I was competing in jiu-jitsu. I went from white belt to black belt quite quick in about 4 years, and it was great. But it kind of, at the time, once I got to kind of like black belt level, and I felt like I was as good as anyone. I just needed to have a good day to win the world championship, similar to poker. Yeah. I felt like it was sort of limited, and I felt like I kind of hit a roof in a sense of where I could go from there. I knew that if I kept training from there, I'm like, what's going to happen is I'm bound to win a world championship. But I'm thinking, okay, is it really, like, because I won 2, one at blue, one at purple, got silver at brown, and I hadn't won a black belt yet. I've made the finals, the quarterfinals 3 years in a row. But I was trying to figure out, I'm like, well, is it going to really do anything more for me? Is it really going to give me anything further than what it's done? And I kind of realized it's not. Like, I love competing in jiu-jitsu, but it's more of a self-growth thing than it is like an accomplishment thing. Yeah. So I ended up, I was in London at the time, and I fought in an event called Polaris. Yeah. And then I come back to Australia, and I thought I was a little bored of jiu-jitsu, so I just wanted to step back from jiu-jitsu for a while, and I wanted to go back and play Australian rules football. And my brother was a coach of a side, and I knew I could make some money doing that. So I went black. I played 5 games, and on the 5th game, I was playing with both my brothers. I went to dodge somebody, like to run around them, with about 10 seconds to go, and my whole knee gave way. Ouch. And I snapped my ACL, I tore my MCL, my LCL, my PCL, and I split the meniscus, the lateral meniscus. So I knew I couldn't do much for a while. And I went to the doctor, and they gave me an MRI, and they told me what happened and said it was a minimum of a year recovery, and it was a real bad one. So here I was like, okay, I don't know how to make money right now. I can't really do much. And I didn't really want to sit there and dwell on it. I just want to try and find something that I could do that I enjoyed. So in the moment, I was like, okay, I'm going to become an actor. That's what I'm going to do. So I called my brother. I told him. He spoke to his roommate and said, look, my brother wants to get into acting. What should he do? He said, well, maybe I'll speak to my agent and see if he is interested in taking somebody on. So he spoke to the agent. He got me a meeting. I spoke to the agent. We got along really well. He took me on. I ended up getting I was in a feature film really quickly, like a fight scene where I get killed. And then he got me a role in a series called Jack Irish that starred Guy Pearce.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. It's Guy Pearce.
Season 3.
Yeah, it's a great show. Yeah,
it's good.
Paramount or something. Yeah. Great show. Yeah.
And so I had a small speaking role in that, and I absolutely loved it. And then
it wasn't Neighbours then.
Huh?
Who's that?
It wasn't Neighbours.
No.
Or Home and Away, because you get that, and then it's a singing career straight away. Yeah. You got to give them their due, man. Guy Pearce has done well.
Guy Pearce done very well.
Kylie Minogue's done well. That Mark Little. That's about it. Then everyone else. Jason Donovan. I don't know. Jason Donovan looks like Jason Donovan's granddad now. Have you seen how old that guy looks? I tell you something. He needs to get back to Bondi Beach. He looks older than me. You know, he looks. I'll tell you what, he looks older than that Hitler that who he was playing in your movie, man. Yeah. So anyway, carry on. I digress.
So I ended up getting a major role in a film called Iron Sky, and I was very lucky to get that. And then we shot that in Belgium in 2015, I think it was. And I had like the time of my life. It was like the most fun I've ever had doing anything in my life. So I knew from that moment, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do as a career. Unfortunately, I had to like change a few things because I knew that it's going to take a few years to be able to break into film, and I need to get a lot better. So I came back. I used the money I got in the movie to fix my knee, which took a year to recover from. It really took a lot longer, but it took a minimum of a year. And then I started building an online platform for coaching in martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which went really well because it allowed me to be able to make money without having to do much. In a sense, like it's not worth my time and value. It's just it's a product that I sell. And they started selling really well, so it gave me a lot of like financial stability so that I could pursue acting. And then the next step was getting over here to get my O1 so I can actually work. Because a lot of stuff I like doing is filmed over here. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the Australian films. I think they're getting better now. They're starting to do a lot more. But for example, I'm not a big fan of the show Neighbours or Home and Away. I find it very tedious myself. Yeah, good. So that was like the last thing I ever wanted to. I know, like, if the opportunity would come, it would have been a good stepping stone, but I would really hate doing it. So I preferred to like try and find a different way around there. So I wanted to move straight here and start doing it, which took a long time. And so now I'm here. I've almost got my O1 visa, which should be here between 3 weeks and 2 months, depending on how long it takes. And I'm just here doing acting classes, doing improv classes, and trying to get as good as I can so that the next opportunity I do have, I can be in the best possible position. I think a lot of actors make the mistake of, it's like they're competing in martial arts, but they're never training. They're just trying to get a fight in martial arts. Yeah. And then what will happen is they'll get a fight and get their ass kicked and then never get another fight again.
Yeah, it's all in the preparation, hey? Everything's all about preparation. I want to just pull you back to like Iron Sky. Like, I'll tell you right now, Will sent me the link. I watched it this morning because I wanted it fresh in my brain. And there's two things. First of all, I was gutted that I missed the first one. I don't know how that got past me. That absolute classic. I watched that straight after. Then watched when I first watched your one, right? First of all, I thought it was amazing. It was like. Did you know what you were getting into when you signed up for this? Had you seen the original? Yeah. Really?
Yeah, he sent me the script, and I read the script, and I was always growing up. I always loved like mystery stuff. I always loved what you would call like alternate history or conspiracies and stuff like that. I find it very interesting. Like I'm not like subscribe to exactly.
Yeah, man. Turn off Alexa. Turn off Alexa, man. Because don't ever talk in front of Alexa, and don't ever go on Ancestry.com, because somewhere they're building a robot out of your DNA right now.
Exactly. Okay? That'll be one bad robot.
That would be a badass robot. Mine's not too good at the moment. You know, mine needs a reboot. Needs turning off and turning back on. So tell us about when you read the script.
Well, I thought it was really fun. I thought it sounded like a fun adventure. I thought for sure this is like a very crazy script. And I know there's going to be some people that are just going to hate it, but I mean, I thought it sounded like a lot of fun. I liked the character. I liked the chemistry between all three characters, especially on the script. And, I thought it was an amazing opportunity for me. I was just super excited to audition for it. So I ended up having, I auditioned once, a video audition, and they liked that, and they sent me a bigger scene to put, like, it was 2 scenes to put together, and then I did a bigger scene, they liked that. Then it was trying to get the producer over the line. So the director was really happy. Right. And they originally, I should mention, they originally had another guy casted for the character I took, Malcolm. Right. But they weren't set on him, and then they did. Then they got a hold of me. and then they were happier. So I had to get the producer over the line. So we had a Skype meeting, and he was just worried because I was in Australia. They were filming in Belgium, and he wouldn't have to fly me forward and backwards, and I was very new to acting, so they were taking a very big risk. But he ended up saying okay, and I was very happy because I worked my ass off for that. I think I had 5 weeks to prepare for it, and I was going to the gym twice a day. I was working on an American accent almost all day because I'd never done one before.
Right.
And then I was...
that was a good accent, by the way. That was a good accent.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I had to try and stay in character the whole... Like, not in character, but I used that accent the whole time while filming. Like, I never stopped once.
You mentioned Daniel Day-Lewis earlier. When he did Gangs of New York, he stayed in character from the minute he walked on, and he wouldn't even talk. He referred to Liam Neeson as Priest Vallon all the way through. But come on, that you can see where the work went in on that. So if you don't mind me saying, right, don't mind me asking you, were you into sci-fi when you were younger? Because you mentioned you were into wrestling and stuff, but did you watch any science fiction? Not just like the mainstream stuff, but the weird stuff.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I was a massive Star Wars fan. Now, not of the original 3, of the next 3, like the Phantom Menace and stuff like that. I absolutely love them. And I think because I'm 33, so I started with the Phantom Menace. It was very hard to go backwards in Star Wars because it went from like super exciting lightsaber scenes to a lot more very basic lightsabers, and that's what I really enjoyed when I was younger. So I loved, I love sci-fi. I love the Terminator movies. There's a heap of movies I really enjoy. I think my favorite type of movie was like Lord of the Rings, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm asking is, right, there's a great scene in it where you have to, you get hit in the head by that crazy Russian, right? And then you I don't know, I think you say it's an anti-attack uniform or something. Where he punches you in the helmet, right?
Yeah, it's like
he punches
a fully punch-resistant outfit. Yeah,
that was the one. And then when you're stripped off and you put on your lucky shirt, right? The minute I saw it, because I'm like a Star Trek geek, I was like, shit, they've put a red shirt on Kit Dale. The guy's going to last for like maybe 15 minutes and then he's going to be dead. Because that's how it always works in Star Trek, right? Uh-huh. Did you realise that, or did you realise? No.
No, I never got into Star Trek. I was Star Wars, but I never. Oh, I watched the newer ones, but not the old ones.
Oh, you got to watch the old ones. The old ones are great. There's that much subtext going on there that it's if you imagine a more subtle way of getting into Eddie Bravo's head, right? So when you watch your movie, like that is what I expect is inside of Eddie Bravo's head. Give or take. Maybe there might be a few more space Nazis in Eddie's head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Star Trek's different. It's completely different. But while you were doing it, did you realise that the Vril were actually a thing? Did you read the book about these guys?
I don't think I read the book about Vril particularly. I remember reading about shape-shifting aliens and stuff like that. Shape-shifting lizard people. So I was kind of putting 2 and 2 together. The Hollow Earth, I'd read about that. Nazis on the Moon, I'd read about that. Plus a whole bunch of other things. I was reasonably prepared for what to expect with that. There were certain things that I wasn't sure how they were going to play out, like the dinosaurs and stuff like that. Especially I had a fight scene with dinosaurs.
I was going to say everything up till there. You go, I can deal with that, and they go, right, you've got to fight barehanded 2 dinosaurs, and then as soon as that's over, you've got to watch some of your friends get eaten by like an alien Steve Jobs. And literally, I was in my element watching this movie. I there should be a spoiler alert, but this isn't a spoiler alert. This is an advert. Anybody who's into this sort of shit will go, what?
Yeah.
But some of the symbology in the movie was like really got me. Like Michelangelo's Last Supper, where they're all sitting down, and Margaret Thatcher. And were you around for that scene to be shot? Were you on set then?
I think I did come on set for that for a little bit. There was one day of shooting where the old president lady, she had to do a very big monologue, and it was really tough. She was having a really tough day. I remember they ended up putting her dialogue in little bits and pieces across the set as she would walk from one place to the other. She could find what her dialogue was because she was having a really bad day because she had an allergy to the horse.
Yes.
She said it was giving her a massive headache, so she took some like Adderall or something, and that made it harder for her to like focus and remember her lines. Yeah. So she was having a really bad day, so I remember that was a real tough one, a tough day for them. And I saw a little bit of it. I wasn't on set that day, but I just come in and had a look.
Well, when I saw that scene, and first of all, you said about the horse, that was Caligula. So we see that, and then Osama bin Laden's in there. And then I've gone on Wikipedia to find out who they all were. But one of them's like the Finnish prime minister from like the 70s. So they really they've just shafted every single person there. But you know what you were saying about leaving the pieces of dialogue around, right? When they were making The Godfather, I don't know if you know this, but Marlon Brando couldn't be bothered to learn any lines. So I don't know. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen the scene that's shot from the back of Robert Duvall's head? Have you ever seen this one? If you go on Google later,
I've seen the whole movie recently. I'm trying to remember the exact scene.
Well, it's the scene where like Duvall is their like consigliere. He's their main man for their advisor, and Marlon Brando turns up and he just doesn't bother to do the line. So there's this great picture where he's actually got the whole of his lines taped onto Robert Duvall's chest. And that's a thing. So just when you make it really, really big, at the moment, I know you need to learn your lines and stuff. But in a while, Daniel Day-Lewis is going to have your lines maybe on his forehead or something. That'd be good, wouldn't it? It'd be good.
It's funny because I actually relate to that a lot in a sense. There's a lot of the way acting works that I really don't enjoy. And I don't like to work that way. And it comes back from, and it shows in my martial arts where I don't really like having routines or set patterns. I'm very like improvisational, and I prefer to have a few rules to follow that I can improvise outside of freely. And with acting, it's very hard because you have a strict dialogue, and it's very easy to start, learning your lines and pre-shape things before you even get to set, and then suddenly you start doing it the way you pre-shaped it, and the actor doesn't work within that main frame.
It won't be natural.
Suddenly you're not listening.
Yeah. It'll never.
And I get a lot of what he was doing in a sense because I think he wanted it a lot more natural, and I think if you look the way he does it, I mean, he looks the most natural out of everybody, and I can kind of get a sense of that, and it's something that I would like to aspire to, not to be like a pain in the ass on set or anything like that, but just to have his ability to be natural and fluent, even without knowing the lines, and finding really creative ways, whether it's someone speaking to him. I know he used to get, Udo Kier was telling me, he used to get people would tell him through his ears what his dialogue was, and he would just blurt it out. And it's a very interesting, creative way of delivering your lines rather than just rehearsing them. And I think that whatever he did worked well because he was amazing.
But some of the I know I've read a few times anecdotes of some of the greatest moments in the cinematic history have always been literally where two guys have just improvised. I know that Michael Mann scene in Heat, Michael Mann, where it was De Niro and Pacino. And they let them just figure that out between them, you know what I mean? But the best one I ever remember, and there's really no dialogue in it, is Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, the movie. You know when he blows up the hospital? Well, as he's walking away, like it's great. It easily got the Oscar for it because he was amazing anyway. But when he pressed the button on the remote control to blow up the hospital in real life, he pressed it and there was a delay, and that's why he was shaking the walkie-talkie, and they kept that actually in the movie because it was like that look of why the fuck isn't this working actually is that was Heath Ledger, not the Joker. You know what I mean? And you think about it, you go, that's a classic scene, and you would have lost it. That actually, as you were saying about the improvisational thing, that really it'll lead me into it'll lead me into something I've always wanted to ask you, right? Because you're well known for don't drill, roll, and it's that whole learning techniques. And I personally think you've been a little bit. I think there's been some license with what you actually would have said. So I'd like to know what you really think, because some people say, "Oh, Kit Dale says you don't learn jiu-jitsu, you just roll," and then you find out about jiu-jitsu. And I'm thinking, you get to a black belt and spend 4 years. You'll have learned something in those 4 years, because I've been doing it for 10 years and I'm learning stuff every day. But it's is it like the salient points that you think that you find in jiu-jitsu through the rolling?
Well, look, there's a few key factors that come into learning, and biological and psychological. The first thing is, like, the key in jiu-jitsu is to obtain as much information as you can possibly. And the problem with a lot of the way people learn is they don't retain very much information. They might retain 10% of the information they learn. So they end up spending, 10 hours worth of time and remembering 1 hour worth. And a lot of that has to do with certain things. I'll give you an example. The amygdala, you know what the amygdala is? The lizard brain, the fight or flight. That has a big operation in how deep you obtain information.
Right.
So they've found that the higher you are, the more aroused you are emotionally, the deeper you're going to store information. For example, if you can remember any kind of emotional trauma that you've been through, you can probably remember the smell, the taste you had in your mouth, the temperature, everything. Now, the problem with drilling a technique is there's no real emotional connection with that. You practice a technique a couple of times and then you're just drilling it over and over and over again, and you're trying to create muscle memory. We'll get back to the muscle memory part, but there's no emotional value on it. So you're not storing it very deep. You're kind of just practicing it and it's going outside your ear, through one ear and out the other. When you do specific training, and I say specific training more than just rolling, because rolling does the same thing, but it's so vague. You can end up mounted for a whole session and learn nothing. But specific training, let's say you're playing guard, it might be half guard, and they're trying to pass half guard, and all you've got to do is play in that area. Then what happens is you start playing, and then you make certain mistakes and it stresses you out, or certain things work and you get super excited about it. And you start remembering this, and you start learning through trial and error, and you start encoding and storing information at a much deeper level. So basically, instead of storing like 10% of what you're doing, you start storing 80% of what you're doing. And it's got an experiential level to it, because through experience. So you start using a system of trial and error and problem solving to discover, certain solutions to whatever problem you have. So that's by far the best way of learning anything, in my opinion. And it's been tested in almost every single sport, every single art right now, that is the best way to learn anything. The problem is, like I said, jiu-jitsu is very vague, and it's very hard to be disciplined enough to work on all the areas you want, because most people get excited and they get good at guillotines and they like winning, so they just try and guillotine the whole session instead of working on what they want. So one thing that I did, which was I was very disciplined. I do that in acting as well, is I'm very honest with myself in a sense of where am I good and where am I not good? Where do I need to work? And I'm very disciplined to make sure that I work on every area so that I'm very comfortable in any situation. So whether it's half guard, closed guard, spider guard, passing guard, stand-up, wrestling, judo, anything, I want to work on all the areas. The problem with creating muscle memory, in my opinion, the goal of muscle memory is to move and react very quickly. The problem is you don't need to move super quick, and especially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you don't need to move very quick. You can, but you don't need to. And a better guy will move a lot slower and more efficiently than what moving quick will. And there's two reasons. One, you can go real quick and scramble, and you can pass someone's guard. But can you actually remember exactly what you did to pass that? And did you obtain any kind of information to get better or to excel at that level? Probably not, because it was too quick for you to even pick up. So by moving slower, you're going to see a lot more and you're going to read a lot more. It's almost like trying to speed read a book and then give a verbal talk about what you read. It'd be very hard because you went through it real quick rather than really reading it and imagine it. So I try and slow down what I'm doing. So the part with creating muscle memory to move really quick, I think, is silly. for one, and you use a lot of energy, 2. 3, you're creating habits, and habits can be detected very quickly. And it's the same in poker. You don't want to create habits in anything you do, because people will figure that out. And then when they start realizing that you raise your right eyebrow every time you have the nuts, then they're going to know whenever you have that. So I want to avoid any of that. I want to be completely unpredictable, and I want to be able to predict what people are doing. And it's very easy. The more they drill, the easier I can start seeing patterns in what they're doing and in the movements. And the more I can see patterns, the more I can find little things to change to throw them off their game. So the one thing that drilling does is it makes you move very quick without reacting. So then I can start tricking people, and I can start pushing buttons because I know they're going to do A, B, or C whenever I do it. And I can start making people make mistakes before they even realize they're doing it. And the easy part of that is when I look at a movement, I don't look at a technique. I look at what's the body mechanics behind the movement? What is the why in that technique? Why does that technique work? And I try and internalize the why so that I can be a lot more flexible in my approach. For example, a knee cut guard pass. I could show you a 6-step knee cut guard pass, or I could tell you what you're really trying to achieve when doing it. If I show you the 6-step knee cut guard pass, you're going to practice that and you're going to be able to do that one guard pass. But anytime any variable changes, you're going to have to change the guard pass. Yeah. Or I could have told you why you're doing this and allowed you to play around and start improvising and using trial and error to obtain the same goal, but you would become much more flexible with that, and you would have a lot more intellectual understanding of what you're trying to do. So you can start becoming more flexible. Instead of using your right arm, I use my left arm. Instead of using my knee to block the other knee, I use my chin to block the knee. You become more creative and a lot more free, and you become far less predictable. So there's like a couple examples.
Yeah. Well, just as you're saying it's a very artistic way of looking, from an artistic point of view and from a mindset of looking at it, because as you were saying, if you're good at one thing, we'll go back to where you were saying if you're good at a guillotine, right? There's cases where we just have to say, right, okay, it's like Roger Gracie, with a cross choke from mount. I'm sorry, but that's a thing of beauty. And every time I see it, it's slightly different, but I have an idea of what I'm looking at. But then when I look at artists that I really admire, like say Michelangelo, and I just go, right, okay, now David was amazing. That's a great sculpture. But, I've gone into the Sistine Chapel and I've seen that, and that's amazing too. And it's if it's just art, then you don't really care what medium you're working in, do you? Have you found that? But obviously with jiu-jitsu, in 4 years, you went from there to there really quickly. And then, hopefully the same thing works with acting. And is it the same principles? It sounds very like NLP based. I don't know. Have you studied neuro-linguistic programming? Because it sounds exactly the same sort of process that I try and solve problems with is what you're talking about. Yeah,
it's definitely the same algorithm. The success algorithm works on everything. I think there's one thing that I have an understanding of, and I know Joe Rogan used to talk about this, when someone that's become successful in one area can always, if they can find that algorithm, they can become successful in any area. Now, there's a couple of things that I'm willing to do that not a lot of people are. And there's a few things I understand. One, there's no such thing as perfection, and I think a lot of people try to start something perfect. It could be jiu-jitsu, it could be acting, where they start and they're like, okay, I want you to show me the proper way to do this. And it's very hard for people to understand there is no real proper way to do anything. There's multiple ways you can do anything, and every single way can be counted, and every single way can work. There's a lot more that goes on that other than the practical application of something that has super importance, and a lot of that is manipulation and timing and stuff like that. Now, the one thing I understand with anything I'm going to try and do, and I started snowboarding not long ago. My girlfriend she snowboarded all her life. And I started snowboarding, and within 3 sessions, from what they say, I've gotten to a place that usually takes people like about 7 weeks worth of training. And there's 2 factors that I understand that I let go. Is 1, I'm going to suck. I'm going to suck really bad. 2, I'm going to fail so much. I'm going to crash so much. And the more I can crash and the quicker I can get back on there, the more I'm going to learn, the faster I'm going to learn. It's very easy for someone to tell you, and I'm not sure if you guys have ever snowboarded. It's easy for someone to say, "Oh, don't get your front edge in the snow because you'll go forward." But until you did that front edge in your snow and you go flying 10 meters forward and you hit your face, you don't really understand what they're saying or why they're saying these things. So a lot of lessons and a lot of, like, people will start something and they'll start jiu-jitsu and they'll start studying so much and writing down all this kind of stuff. And the true teacher in it is experience. And I know that the most important thing with learning anything is how you associate the information. And the problem is when people start jiu-jitsu is they have no kind of intellectual, connection to what you're teaching. So it's really hard for them to absorb that information. Most technical jargon you're going to use will go through one ear and out the other. So the problem with a lot of people is they start learning before they start doing. So I start doing before I start learning, so I can have some kind of intellectual experience to associate new information with. With snowboarding, I just got on and I failed. I fell so many times. And now when they say something, I'm like, that makes sense. And it's like those moments that I get to a lot quicker than what most people do. So in jiu-jitsu, I just wanted to roll. And I started playing. And I didn't have any kind of, and I didn't even like people telling me what to do because I found the fun in it was discovering it for myself. But the more experience I had through trial and error and playing around with things, the easier it was to understand lessons when people would tell me something because I would have something solid to associate that with. Yeah. And the experts on learning have said that the declarative understanding of things, which is like in your hippocampus, is like a scaffolding system. You guys know what scaffolding is. So the smaller your scaffold, the harder it is to learn new things because they will kind of miss. Someone will say something that won't make any sense. The bigger your scaffold, the easier it is to learn new information. So basically what you want to do is you want to develop a feeling for something and an experience in something before you start learning stuff. And it's the same as riding a bike. I think people get on a bike in jiu-jitsu, I'm going to use this metaphorically, they get on the bike and the first thing they want to learn is how to do an endo or how to do a jump or how to do which are submissions and how to do a guard pass, but they don't know how to balance. They don't know that feeling yet. They don't know how to just move, to roll. Yeah. And a lot of what I teach in jiu-jitsu with beginners especially is I get them playing straight away. I give them an idea of what jiu-jitsu is intellectually, what are the goals in jiu-jitsu? And then we'll start in the small area of it. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to start in my guard. Now, what you want to do is you want to get past these legs and you want to get to side control, mount, or take my back, for example. Yeah. I know that you don't know how to do this, and it doesn't matter. There's a million ways to do it. There's no right or wrong way. I just want you to start playing around and trying. And at first, they'll be very tentative because they want to know, tell me what to do. And it's like, no, just try. So you make them feel comfortable at first. And then they start trying to play around. And you watch their eyes start lighting up when they throw your legs out of the way and they almost pass. And they're having so much fun and they're breathing so much. Yeah. And then you start like giving them small lessons. And then now they've already got information to associate that with. Because you say, look, the way you did this was great. But you see, it was hard for you to pass because you couldn't attach yourself to my body. And they start learning so much faster than what they would if they just jumped into a class learning 3 techniques at the start, then did some, sparring or whatnot. Yeah,
so, the embracing failure is something that I've used for years in martial arts. I always say I'm not good at martial arts. What I've done is I've run out of ways of sucking at martial arts. Like I've done. Trust me, no one's failed more than me. And the only thing that I am good at is showing up. That's the only. Like I'm good at showing up, and I'm good at just going, this is crap. So, jiu-jitsu wise, obviously it's exploding now. It's this global phenomenon, right? So when you first got into it, did you think it was going to be? Because when you got in,
you guys there? It's frozen for the moment.
All right.
We're still here.
All right, back now.
All right. Cool. Was it? Did you have an idea it was going to be as big as it's? Well, I still don't think it's got as big as it can do because it's still going to that demographic of 16 to 34-year-old male and angry women at the moment. Apologies to the women who are doing jiu-jitsu, but there's quite a few angry ladies doing it. But I'm only joking. Will's crying there. Sorry, man. But once we really get kids involved into it, and then like white collar, really professional guys because they're starting to get into it now, but it's still, we still haven't scratched the surface. I don't think personally. Did you think it was going to be this big?
Nah, not at all. I didn't even like. I mean, the reason I got into it was because I liked MMA, and I was playing Australian rules football, and I was getting beaten up by some of the bigger guys. So I wanted to learn how to fight and protect myself and become confident. That's the only reason I got into. I went to an MMA school that was more. It was more a Jeet Kune Do school that did a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and then I really enjoyed the jiu-jitsu part of it. And I accidentally stumbled into that one time, and I remember thinking like, oh man, I could do this. Looks like fun. So at the time it was quite, and it was 2008, it was quite fresh, especially in Australia.
Yeah.
And I had no idea it was going to blow up like it was at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my first goal in jiu-jitsu was like, okay, maybe I can get a school in 10 years and make enough money to do that as a job instead of doing what I was doing as a job.
And what were you doing as a job?
I think back then I was working in a factory, or maybe I was plastering. I did like every
really. That's what
job you can figure out.
That's my job.
What were you?
I still plaster. Yeah, love it, man.
Shit.
Yeah, it's the trade of kings, man. Trust me, we make the world a more beautiful place, one wall at a time.
Yeah. I'm always looking at cornicing now and stuff, and I'm looking at judgmental and shit.
Hey, I knew there was something I liked about you, man.
My brother's a plasterer, my uncle's a plasterer, my cousin's a plasterer, my two wrestling coaches were plasterers.
Do you think that's where the chimp strength comes from? Because the upper body strength is
definitely helped.
Yeah,
definitely helped. I'll tell you that much. It's fucking holding, fucking lifting, doing ceiling and shit, 6-meter ceiling.
Oh, yeah. Could just dive in with a quick one. Is how do you choreograph brawling, sprawling, and suplexing the Nazi dinosaurs? Was it all rubber monsters, or was it blokes in green suits? And how do you act into that as well? Because you had to fight and act.
We had some really good stunt guys, and the name's gone out of my head. One of them was like Van Damme's main stunt partner for a while, and he was amazing. I just can't remember his name. And we kind of just blocked out what we thought was going to happen with the guy that was going to do the special effects and stuff like that. And we just kind of come up with some ideas and choreographed some fight scenes. It was quite tough because we knew, one, no one's going to be there when I do it. And two, I have to like work within a certain rules if there was a dinosaur. So I had to get an idea, okay, what does this dinosaur look like? What kind of dinosaur is it? How big is it? How thick is it? How strong is it? And we kind of just come up with a few ideas. So, and then at start we used the stunt guys to work with me as if they were the dinosaurs. And then I just had to keep repeating the sequence as if there was no dinosaurs.
Right.
Sorry, without the stunt guys, as if there was dinosaurs. And the tough part of that was when we shot especially the dinosaur scene where the two dinosaurs attacked me. The guy that was filming that on a Steadicam, and he was doing a 360 around me as I was going. Yeah. So we also had to make sure that whatever I did matched up with the camera angle as well. And as he went around me, he would step onto a crane, and then the crane would pick him up, and then he would end up going over the top of me. And we were very lucky. We did it in 3 takes, and we just got it. We got it very lucky, and it worked very well. But it was very difficult. And with the scenes with the Vrilya, like I wanted to add a bit more jiu-jitsu, but it was quite hard with the suits, with the makeup and all that kind of stuff to do that. So we went more with like kind of wrestling style takedowns and stuff like that, like the old WWE and stuff like that. Which works well. And I think it might
big and dramatic
at that stage.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It was big and dramatic. WWE.
Yeah. Okay, here's the last question I've got to ask you, right? Do you really like your men big and hairy?
Oh, fuck no.
What did you think when they gave you that line?
I was like, what? I felt like I wasn't sure how to take it at first. But the funny part of that filming is I had to slap that guy's ass about 76 times, I think.
Wow.
They wanted to film it. I'm like, are they taking the piss out of me or what? Like I kept slapping this guy's ass, but then red.
Do you know what I was really impressed with? Right? Like in every Mel Gibson movie, he's always like a messianic figure, isn't he? So like Martin Riggs, he's like Jesus. That every movie that that Mel Gibson does. He's always Jesus or something like it, right? And you upstaged him because you were a right badass, fighting dinosaurs, going to the Hollow Earth, and you almost got taken out by a wheat allergy and peanuts, right? And then at the last minute, you came out, and I swear to God, I thought it was Lethal Weapon 5, man. I thought you were Mel Gibson. I thought Martin Riggs had come back. What was that like back at the end?
So last part?
What was it like coming back at the end, knowing that you were going to get in there and you didn't die?
Well, I was glad I was coming back, but that was a difficult scene to do because they had to really lock me into that coffin. And it was quite hard because every time I would explode out, I would try and find out where the hell am I, who am I speaking to. It was fun, though. But if I had a bad day of claustrophobia, that would have been really tough because they had to screw me into that thing and then I would have to explode out.
No, good, man. Well, do you know what? I wish you all the best. It's been great chatting to you.
Final question.
One more question.
I've got one last question. Is part 2, Soviet Mars? Are you possibly going to be in it? Do you think you might be, or is it? I mean,
it's definitely possible. I spoke to the directors and the writers about that, and I think they're very happy with the chemistry of the three of me, Vladimir, and oh my God, I forgot his character's name.
Sasha and
me, the Russian. Sasha, that's it. Me, Sasha, and
Obi-Wan.
God, it's been 4 years since I filmed that.
Don't worry, man.
They were happy with the way that went. So I know they're very interested in doing another one. Whether they do it or not, I have no idea. I do hope they do it because remember, we filmed this nearly 5 years ago. It was the first movie I've ever done, and I feel like, to me, it was like I was a white belt and 4 stripes back then. Now I feel like I'm like a purple belt. So I would love to do another one like that with what I know now. I think I would do a much better job, and I think the accent will be a lot better as well. But I hope they do it because it was fun. I think there's definitely a possibility, depending on how this one goes, really.
Right, this is the final question. What's this I hear that you're going to be in the Mortal Kombat movie?
Well, listen, I'm glad you said that. I do have a meeting with casting this week to discuss that. And that popped up when I found out they were doing that, especially in Adelaide. I feel like it's a very good opportunity for me because, 1, I'm a martial artist. 2, I look very similar to one of the main characters, but I could play a multitude of characters. And I've loved Mortal Kombat since I was a kid. I grew up playing Mortal Kombat, Streetfighter, and stuff like that. And I think I would play a very good Kano role. So I've got a meeting with them, and it was very lucky because I have a lot of people, a lot of really cool friends online that know people that got me, they highly recommended me to it. So I speak to the lady from Adelaide, the casting, probably Wednesday. And basically I'm going to tell them why they should put me in there and what I could contribute to the movie. And I think it would be a very good, it'd be an amazing opportunity for me. And I think I could do a very good job on that. So I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that it happens. If not, it'll eventually happen, however it happens. But, what can you do?
Cool.
We wish you the best in that because that'd be fantastic if you are. That'd be
Thank you, mate.
No, see you later,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
No worries at all, man. Thanks for this, guys. It was fun.
No worries. Adios. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.